The Canon T7i has been my camera for the past, I think, 2 years now. I'm just getting around to doing a review on it now because I finally got a new camera so I can actually film this and have a high quality video and all that. But unlike some other videos that you might have watched, I'm gonna totally skip over any of the specific stats of the camera because I'm assuming you've probably already researched those yourself. And if you haven't, there's a bunch that's much easier to just read through on websites or on Canon's page. When I'm researching things on YouTube, I just want people's personal opinions, and I figured that's why you're here too. If you appreciate me skipping the stats, leave a like below. Every single one helps my dreams come true, and it's free to you. Hey, that rhymes. Now let's get on to the practical things. The T7i is a good all-around beginner camera, but here are some of the few specific things that I found practically helpful or practically annoying about it. Number one, the articulating screen. If you're a YouTuber, if you're a vlogger, if you're a videographer, 100% you need this. I'm a hybrid shooter. I shoot photos and I shoot video. I really like them both pretty much evenly. And even for photo, the articulating screen was super important all the time. Another practical thing, the battery life is absolutely crazy. It's really good. You can expect over 2 hours on every battery for this. You should really never run out of battery. I haven't even tested it because I've probably shot videos, probably like 5 videos on one battery before, filming maybe like 30 minutes per video. So yeah, no issues there at all. Now, one problem that I had with it, and this is mostly where video is concerned, is that the autofocus could be better. There were times where I would come up to it to shoot a shot like this and then like walk back, and it wouldn't follow me around very well. This can be expected. There's always compromises that you have to make when you're looking at a beginner camera, and you know, all told, it's a decent autofocus system. Just prepare to have to, you know, come up to the camera, tap on your face, and then like back away really slowly so that it can track you. Finally, on the practical side of things, you're probably looking at a bunch of different beginner cameras and you're seeing that the T7i only shoots 1080p when you can get things like the M50 or I think the Sony A6400. I don't know. I think that one shoots 4K. You can get some cameras around the same price range that do film in 4K. This isn't important at all to you. Here's why. Any beginner camera that shoots in 4K is not going to be full frame 4K, it's going to be a cropped 4K. Even my R6 is a cropped 4K, but when you go to even cheaper, you know, it's just going to get more and more exaggerated and way worse. There's very different kinds of 4K, so don't get stuck up on the stats. Some 4K looks way better than others. My iPhone shoots 4K, and it doesn't shoot it very well. The T7i only shoots 1080p, but it looks way better than my 4K on my phone. So don't focus on those little, you know, 4K versus 1080p stats. It doesn't matter. I would even go so far as to say that you don't want 4K when you're getting started in videography. Unless you're specifically wanting to use the camera for any sort of professional video scenes, such as making advertisements, social media stuff, just like as a job, then 1080p is better for you because it's way easier to edit on your computer. You don't need as much processing power, and all of the storage requirements are way smaller on 1080p than they are for 4K. Just a little side note on the whole commercial video thing. If you're trying to get into something where you can make videos for clients, you're gonna wanna get something better than a beginner camera. At least that's my opinion. Finally, photo resolution is really good. It's a 24 megapixel camera, which doesn't mean everything as far as sharpness and your ability to blow it up, but I have taken photos on this camera that I've blown up to like full on poster size and I've got in my basement. So yeah, this thing, resolution, all you could ask for. Hi, I'm editing this right now and I just realized I probably should have touched on its low light performance. With any beginner camera, you're not going to get a whole lot of it in low light. That's a whole different video entirely. You really want lower megapixels for better performance in low light, which is kind of confusing to beginners, and it was confusing to me for sure. But all in all, on the T7i, I don't really like to push it past 1600 ISO, especially with video. With photo, it's a little bit easier to go past that because you can recover some of that with denoise algorithms in like Lightroom or Photoshop, but even then, it ends up looking a little bit funky. It's not the best in low light, but it's very average for a beginner camera. Nothing to write home about. Now that we've got the practical stuff out of the way, I want to go over some sort of unexpected things that stuck out to me in either positive or negative ways after I bought the T7i and over these past 2 years of using it. Number one, it uses Canon's EF mount lenses, which is awesome because those are some absolutely incredible lenses. You can't go wrong with EF mount lenses. But most importantly, you can build your kit with some of these awesome EF mount lenses, and then if you're going to, in the future, upgrade to their mirrorless line, which uses the RF mount, they've got a really great system for adapting those EF lenses right onto the RF mount. I'm doing that right now. It looks perfect. It looks really good, and it works perfectly. Why is this important? Well, this is important because if you're a beginner and you're building up your kit and you think that you're gonna wanna do this professionally someday, you wanna be able to buy lenses first, or rather good lenses first. You start with a cheap camera, buy good lenses as you're building up, because those lenses last a lot longer than camera bodies. Camera bodies are constantly evolving, constantly getting better, but lenses, they're just kind of glass and a microchip and some, wires in there. So there's not a whole lot that they can do to make them better, aside from maybe making them smaller, making them lighter, a little bit faster. In the end, if you buy really high quality glass now, it's gonna be really high quality glass that's good for 10, 20 years. That's not true with camera bodies. Something that's annoying about the T7i is that the flash pops up all the time, so you have to go into the actual camera and disable it. It's really kind of easy, but it was annoying until I figured out that I had to go into the settings and I could disable it. I would just suggest you do that right off the bat if you end up getting this camera. Another thing that's kind of a pain, but again is one of those things that you just kind of get in beginner cameras, is there's only one dial up on the side. This dial up here is the only sort of haptic device you can use to adjust your settings in the camera. Higher quality cameras, you've got more of those adjustments. You got a dial here or a dial back here. This one only has the one, and it can just be a pain when you're trying to get better at photography and you're trying to make more of those adjustments on the fly in between photos, to have to flip open the screen and go boop, boop, boop on the touch screen, trying to get your settings just right. It's something that you just kind of have to compromise on with beginner cameras, but is nevertheless a pain. Okay, the final thing that was the biggest shock to me is that this camera uses an APS-C 1.6 crop sensor. I didn't do enough research before buying things. I don't think anybody can possibly do enough research before buying things. You just kind of end up regretting the first camera purchase you make. Not that I regret this purchase, but anyway, I digress. The APS-C sensor in this crops all of your lens's focal lengths by 1.6 times. So while this is a true 16mm focal length, if I put the same lens with the same setting on this camera, I should be probably around there. Now in some ways this is good, because if you're shooting sports or animal photography, it allows you to get closer to your subject, but in other ways, especially like with videography, it can be a pain because it takes a little while to know your lens focal length conversions, and you just can't get that nice wide, like, sort of vlog look to your footage. And I mean, I sound like a broken record, but this is just kind of something that every single beginner camera has. Is this camera still a good beginner camera? Yes. It's not without its quirks, it's not without its downsides, but overall it is a good beginner camera. Mainly because there's not really anything else that Canon has substituted in its place. As of now, as far as Canon goes, the only viable alternative to the T7i, or I guess the best alternative to the T7i, is the Canon M50. But that uses a totally different lens mount that uses the M system, and the M system is already completely discontinued by Canon. Plus, they're just not the best lenses, so then you have to adapt EF lenses to the M50, which I think you could do. Now, I would suggest that you look at Sony, but the biggest problem with Sony is that their beginner cameras don't have this fully articulating flip out screen. They only have the one that kind of like comes up and stays there, and you can't actually see yourself if you're vlogging with it. Now the A6400 does have a screen that pops up in the back, but if you put a shotgun mic on the top of your camera, it's gonna completely block the screen, because Sony, for some reason, just can't figure out, or at least didn't figure out until just recently, that the fully articulating screen is really the best way to go. In the end, when you're looking to buy an entry-level camera, there's always compromises that you're gonna have to make. I think that the T7i, despite having a few of those compromises, is still a nice, happy medium. It's still a good beginner camera even now in 2021. If you like this video, leave a like below. It helps me out in the algorithm, and I super duper appreciate it. Any questions, leave them below. I'm always happy to help a friend out. Until then, see you later. And remember, you're an awesome human being.